We're back.
We are back.
The third episode of the year for Sports Talk on Elm Street. It's great to be back and talking sports with you and everyone out there listening. Do we want to say hi to the camera?
Hi, camera.
Hi, camera. We should make that like a weekly thing, like a weekly kind of.
Well, we got to check in with the people back home.
That's valid. Yeah. See, we care about you guys.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, but anyway, let's talk some sports.
Let's talk some sports.
You want to talk some sports?
Yeah, I think we started off with maybe some college football.
How do you feel about that? I feel good about that.
Let's do a little bit of a recap, if you will, about the last week 2 of the college football season. Week 3?
It was week 3 last week.
Week 3 of the college football season. My apologies.
Oh, good.
Let's start with our Indiana Hoosiers. What are your thoughts?
How about okay, so all right. I mean, I think this was a winnable game for Indiana, first and foremost. The key moment, obviously, I think you'll agree with me on this, was when they were inside Louisville's 10.
Yeah.
Late in the fourth quarter. It was about, I believe, 2.5 minutes to go. And obviously, this is going to be their last chance to tie the game because by then it was 21-14. And this was their shot, okay? This was their one shot. We're trying to set the scene here. This was their one shot to tie this game. Or, I mean, I wouldn't be outlandish to even go for the win. But listen, if I'm Tom Allen in that scenario, if you score, I kick the extra point, I go to overtime. Mm-hmm. Anyway, it's their last shot to get back in the game, to tie the game, send it to overtime, and they just come up short. They can't get it done.
Inches. I mean, it was inches.
Yeah,
so
it was
on that third down. It looked almost exactly like, if you remember a few years ago, of course, Michael Penix versus Penn State.
Michael Penix Jr. against Penn State.
Almost identical, just opposite ends of the end zone, diving, stretching for the pylon. But in Michael Penix's case, he got the touchdown. In Tavon Jackson's case. Sorry, I was brain fart. In Tavon Jackson's case, his knee hit the ground. And then they had to go for it on fourth down, and it was kind of just didn't look like a great play call.
It was like from there you could just kind of tell that, okay, it's not going to go the way we want it to.
I was upset with the play call in that situation. I mean, it was a run, which I'm not mad about, obviously.
Yeah, because you're at like the 2.
But the run they decided to go with was like it was a bit of like a draw. I mean, they were like 2 feet away from the end zone.
You don't run a draw play at the 2-yard line.
No, like you need to get the ball in the hands of your running back as soon as you can.
Yeah.
Because then he can make it happen. But they take 2 seconds to get him the ball, and then as soon as he gets the ball, there's nowhere he can go because the defensive line is already broken through.
I think it was a questionable play call for the circumstance, for that particular situation. You got to think about what a draw play is. It's like the quarterback takes it, acts like he's going to pass. It's a delayed handoff. You give it off to the running back at like the last possible moment. Why do you think that's going to work when you're at the opponent's 2-yard line and all of these guys are bunched up in the trenches and they know what's coming, right?
Yeah.
They know that some kind of run play is coming. And if you're Tom Allen and the Indiana, the Hoosiers offensive staff, you got to have more like situational awareness than to run a delayed handoff, a draw on when you're at Louisville's 2.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a stupid way to lose.
It was,
frankly.
and it was upsetting for me because the first half was horrendous from the Hoosiers.
Oh, yeah.
It looked terrible.
No,
I mean, there was like maybe the first drive, it looked like there was some hope, but then as that first half went on, it looked like we were going to get blown out.
Yeah.
40-0.
Louisville was making it clear that they were. I think they were the better team.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. I think they were the better team, and they were making that clear throughout that whole first half.
But then you come out in the second half, and the Hoosiers, I mean, something changed in the halftime, and they looked good. I mean, their offense was kicking. They scored 2 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. Their defense was stopping Louisville multiple times. And
I was impressed with Tavon's performance in the second half. Quarterback Tavon Jackson, of course, he was making good reads. He was letting the game come to him. In the first half, he was like forcing things in there. He looked like a freshman. In the first half. But in the second half, that changed, and he looked a lot more composed, a lot more calm, a lot more confident in his throwing.
Yeah, and I mean, It was good. It was good hope for Indiana fans across the country because I feel like that gives a little bit of hope. Like maybe there's a chance we squeak out a Big Ten victory throughout the year because I mean Louisville's a Power 5 team and they hung with them in the second half. Almost you could say they played better.
Yeah,
I mean
yeah,
they outscored
I agree.
14-0.
Yeah.
So it gives them hope. It gives Hoosiers fans some belief in their quarterback, which is good. But at the end of the day, it was just kind of a disappointing loss.
As Indiana fans, we don't really have a lot of.
Not in the football world.
No, not in the football world.
No.
But in the basketball world, maybe. But that's not for another couple months or so.
Yeah.
So we will talk about that soon. Don't worry. But basketball season is not doesn't start till early November. But that was a really disappointing loss for the Hoosiers in Week 3, which drops them now to 1-2 overall, 0-1 in Big Ten play, following the loss to Ohio State in Week 1, which we already talked about.
Yeah.
And so let's take a look. So now we've covered the Hoosiers. Let's take a look at the rest of the slate for Week 4. And last week we said that. Going into Week 3, we said that the lineup of games was a little pretty weak.
Yeah, pretty weak. I mean, it didn't turn out that bad. There were a few good games.
Yeah.
Sticking out to me would be the Missouri-Kansas State ending on that 61-yard
that
goal.
that was a fantastic game, a great finish.
And then I didn't get to watch it much, but the Florida-Tennessee game was somewhat close, and it was an upset technically, but it was also in the swamp. It wasn't really like...
Do we have any idea if Florida is good or not? Because I can't even tell.
I don't know.
They looked awful the first couple weeks of this, and then they go in there and just smack an AP top 25
They're one of those
team in
SEC
Tennessee.
teams that consistently will either play fantastic in a game or
they're the epitome of hot and cold.
Yes.
And
then lastly for Week 3 at least is Colorado State Colorado was a fantastic
game. A great game.
Very good game.
I watched a little bit of that game, but by then it was by the time it was over, I'll admit I didn't watch it all the way through just because all right, I got to go to bed, bro. Because why does it start so late?
Yeah.
But anyway, but it was a fantastic game. Of course, I think the big storyline is the injury to Travis Hunter.
Yeah,
who's going to be out. Coach Deion Sanders said he's going to be out for I believe 3 weeks after that injury, which there's no way around it. That hurts the Buffaloes. It hurts them. He's one of their best. He's definitely their best player. How do I say this? It's he's their best player if you don't consider a quarterback Shader Sanders their best player.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, that makes sense.
Yeah. He's certainly one of the most transcendent players in the game right now, and him not being on the field, I'm grateful that he avoided a more serious injury because that hit was just dirty. It was a dirty hit. There's no way around it. And I'm glad that he avoided a more serious injury.
No, for sure. For sure. And it's a player that obviously, as you mentioned, you just kind of want to see on the field.
Yeah.
So.
We talked about, and we've seen these comparisons going around. He's like the Shohei Ohtani of college football. Yeah. And he's doing something that's just completely unprecedented and that we've never really seen before in this, sport, in this era. And it sucks when he's out on the field and hoping for a speedy recovery.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let's turn our attention to Week 4 because, man, what a lineup. What a lineup we have here. I mean,
my goodness.
We could spend the whole time talking about this slate.
Yeah.
If we really wanted to. But let's go right off the bat. The first game on the slate that I'm seeing, thank you, ESPN, is Rutgers, Michigan. Now, okay, granted, you might be thinking, Rutgers, Michigan? What? Michigan's going to easily take that. And it's in Ann Arbor, too. So, I mean, but Quinn, Michigan they did come off a win. Quarterback J.J. McCarthy did not play particularly well, throwing 3 interceptions. How concerned are you as a Michigan fan going into this game?
As a Michigan fan, let
me back up.
I thought that was implying that
No. Let me back up.
Certified Michigan fan.
If you are a Michigan fan, which I know you,
speaking.
Yeah, hypothetically,
Yeah.
If you're a Michigan fan, what is your concern level going into this game? Because in my personal opinion, for Michigan, this has the feeling, the sense, if you will, of a trap game.
Well, if I'm a Michigan fan, I have no worries at all
Which you're
because
not.
my
Which you're
ego
not.
is through the roof because I'm a Michigan fan. No.
That's awesome.
That was, yeah. But besides that, I don't know. If I was non-biased with a normal-sized ego, I wouldn't be too worried because, I mean, it is Rutgers after all, and Rutgers has this stigma around them that they're just not a great team. But Rutgers has looked pretty good.
They're 3-0. Keep that in mind, and they've already won a conference game.
They already won a conference game, and they had to play Temple and Virginia Tech, and I don't think Temple's going to be that good this year.
That's not a pushover non-conference.
But Virginia Tech, I mean, they're a team that's consistently near the top of the ACC, and obviously, if you want to trash an ACC all you want, but I don't know if Virginia Tech is that horrible of a team.
Yeah.
Granted, they lost to Purdue, but I mean, Rutgers has not played bad, and they've looked good. They haven't really even had a close game yet. So going into Michigan, it's the first real test for either team. I think you could. I mean, I guess Rutgers has been tested with their schedule.
I mean, it's like I said, they have definitely not had a pushover conference slate. I mean, frankly, quite the opposite.
And you look at Michigan's non-conference slate was probably the worst in all of Power 5. I mean,
certainly up there.
You had East Carolina, UNLV, and Bowling Green.
Oof.
So, I mean, I don't really know. I don't understand that from a Michigan standpoint. I guess it's like trying to get wins. I don't know what happened with the scheduling process because I have to imagine as Michigan, like the university, they would try to schedule someone, right? Because like almost all these top Power 5 teams have one like mainstay, like this is our non-conference game that we like Alabama, Texas, Ohio State, Notre Dame. The fact that Michigan's toughest opponent this non-conference slate was probably Bowling Green.
Yeah.
That's not a great look, but it also is going to set up the team for kind of failure against Rutgers. Right? Like I don't think they're going to have that much of an issue because after all, it is Michigan, and these players are much highly touted, must-hire recruits. But J.J. McCarthy threw 3 interceptions against Bowling Green. So what does that tell you about him? What does this tell you about this team? Are they going to be able to bounce back and dominate Rutgers like they should, or is it going to be a trap game where they come close?
I mean, I don't know. I have a sour taste in my mouth following McCarthy's last game.
Yeah.
I still don't really know if he's the guy for this roster.
I don't think McCarthy is. And I don't know if this is just like McCarthy beat my team 2 years in a row. Like I genuinely don't think McCarthy has what it takes to lead Michigan to a national championship, at least at this point in time.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't really proved that he can play like that in good games, and he hasn't proved that he can play consistently.
I think the most striking example of that is the game against TCU last year. I think he played good. They needed him to be great, and he was not great.
Yeah.
And TCU took advantage of that. He committed turnovers, and the whole team was really just there was lots of penalties, lots of turnovers in that game, and the Horned Frogs took advantage practically every time. And I think that's one of the main reasons that the Wolverines lost that year.
Yeah.
But certainly going to be interesting to see how all that shakes out. On a side note, I've noticed how often I say that phrase that I just said. It's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. That's becoming like
That's your staple.
That's my staple. That's like my catchphrase. I just noticed that. Anyway, the next game. So the next one here is Florida State and Clemson.
Oof, this is exciting to me.
Yeah,
this is very exciting to me. I will go off a little bit here.
Go off. Do it.
I think Clemson's going to win this game.
Whoa!
I don't know if that's crazy, and I don't think it is that crazy because the Vegas spread is set to.
It's not terribly crazy,
Vegas
but
spread
Florida
is only
State's
set to
a great
2 right
team.
Now. Yeah, Florida State's a great team, fantastic. But they just okay. Wait. Maybe Florida State will win. I won't be surprised if Clemson's going to win. That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Because
there you go.
I think both teams right now have something to prove. Boston College held Florida State within 2 points. It was 39-29 at the final game.
Right.
A lot of people think Boston College should have won that game.
Yeah.
Granted, it was a tough environment in Boston College, so it's not like Florida State was terrible. They played okay.
Florida State was helped out a lot by all of those penalties that Boston College committed.
They were helped out a lot. Clemson, on the other hand, I mean, everyone has been trashing on Clemson this offseason, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they lost to Duke. They got blown out by Duke. Charleston Southern happened, and I think it was, like, close throughout the first half. Like, there was only a 7-point game after the first half. People were like, oh, Clemson, they suck, and then they ended up blowing them out. But both these teams have something to prove big time here.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
What I'm seeing as what's favoring Clemson is that this is in Clemson, right?
Yeah.
So Clemson is hosting Florida State. Clemson Stadium is one of the toughest to play in, right?
Oh,
I mean,
for sure.
It gets loud in there.
Oh, yeah.
So I would not be surprised in the slightest if Florida State loses because people are counting on Clemson, but keep in mind, I mean, Clemson has tons of 5 stars, tons of 4 stars. they have talent on this roster. They just haven't yet put that together against a good team. And I mean, they lost to Duke, but yeah. So we'll see. I think a lot of it's going to depend on the play of Cade Klubnik. And I'm interested to see how he can play against a team like Florida State, a defense the caliber of Florida State, because when they went against Duke, he kind of played subpar and it cost him the game. What are your thoughts?
Something about Clemson the vibe has just been off throughout the whole. It's not the Clemson of years past. They are not the juggernaut, the powerhouse that they once were as often as little as like maybe 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. And I think Florida State is out. I think they're pissed at how the game against Boston College went, that they should have won it by more, and it should not have happened the way it happened. So I think Florida State comes out, and I think they make a statement on the road against a Clemson team that something just doesn't feel right. And I don't know, and I don't think that it's going to take Dabo Swinney 1 week to magically turn it all around. And I think it's going to take him multiple weeks to figure out what's wrong and how to fix it. So I think Florida State comes in and wins by double digits.
What's your score prediction?
31-17.
31-17.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they come in and win by 2 touchdowns.
Okay.
So that's my prediction. Let's keep going down the list. Honestly, we might just spend this whole hour. We might spend the whole hour on this.
We're not even halfway through.
We're like maybe there's just so many fantastic games, or what should be fantastic games this weekend. Let's go down. How about Oklahoma and Cincinnati? Any thoughts on this one? Because for me, Oklahoma has looked fantastic, and I feel like not enough people are talking about them.
Oklahoma has looked good. I mean, they've put up a lot of points, but I also believe that they play in the Big 12. It's a conference known for having no defense and a lot of offense. And also they played Arkansas State, SMU, and Tulsa. SMU being probably the best opponent, and they only won 28-11. So I'm not super high in Oklahoma because I also think they've just been peppering in extra scores against bad teams, which I don't know if I give that much credit to that. Cincinnati will be a good test.
Yeah.
I don't think Cincinnati is going to win the game.
In Cincinnati, definitely. It's going to be.
It is in Cincinnati. Sorry. But I think Oklahoma will come out with the win, but I think it'll be a good test to see just how well this offense can play and whether or not their defense is actually going to be able to compete with other top defenses in the country, because time and time again, the Big 12, it's just an offensive nightmare.
It has very little defensive cohesion.
I guess it's a defensive nightmare, not an offensive nightmare. It's an offensive dream because everyone in there is like 55-40, and it's
if you wanna go out there and you wanna throw the ball all over the yard, go play in the Big 12.
Go play in the Big 12.
Go play in
sure.
the Big 12, and that's definitely not going to change with realignment. So, in my opinion, I agree. I think Oklahoma is going to take it. I'm higher on the Sooners than most.
Yeah.
I think I'm higher on the Sooners than most. I wrote about them in my Week 3 takeaways article for the Hoosier Network, and I'm very high on them. I think Dylan Gabriel has played fantastic. I think he's a dark horse contender for Heisman. I know that's maybe a bit of an out there take, but I think he's proved it thus far. If he can go out there and have a big game against Cincinnati on the road, then I think he will start to be seriously considered in the national running on the national stage. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, for sure. Because he put up 5 touchdowns last game.
Yeah,
threw 28 for 31 for
3
almost 500
incompletions.
yards.
3. Think about that. That's an insane number, an insane
He had
stat.
more touchdowns than incompletions.
That's crazy. That is just crazy. That is just crazy. But I'm pretty high on the Sooners. I think they're going to have a great year, and I think if they can come out here and get a statement win over a pretty good, at least relatively good Cincinnati team, sky's the limit for the Sooner team. I'm very high on them, and I think they might be better than Texas. Oh wait, maybe a little bit too far. Let's just wait until they go head to head later on in the season.
Have to see about that.
But let's keep going down the list. This next game might be. I was gonna say it would be the best of the weekend, but now that Travis Hunter is out, that might maybe change. Colorado and Oregon in Eugene. Mm-hmm. This might be. I think this could be maybe the second best game of the weekend outside of another game that we're going to get to in a minute, which you are very much looking forward to covering. But more on that in a second. Colorado and Oregon, the Ducks at home. Both teams are 3-0. Quinn, what do you think about this? What are your early thoughts? And how does the impact of Travis Hunter's, how does Travis Hunter's injury and his absence, how will that impact this Buffalo team as they face off against a really, really good Oregon squad?
Yeah, I mean, well, Travis Hunter is a difference maker, and we've seen that early on in the Colorado season. When he's on the field, he's electric, right? And he brings the team up. He brings that energy to the team that is much needed. And not saying that other guys like Shedeur don't, but Travis Hunter being on the field makes this team different. So not having him, I am worried for Colorado because time and time again, this has been like, oh, Colorado hasn't proved themselves. They need to still prove themselves. They have to prove themselves. And they went and shellacked the first two teams they played. I guess they didn't really shellacked TCU, but
that's a
surprised.
That's a good one.
Beat down on Nebraska. Then you go to Colorado State. I mean, Colorado State wasn't that good of a team. I get it. It's a rivalry game. But Colorado State was 0-2 going into that game with actually 0-1 rather, with a loss against Washington State. They're now 0-2. And they almost lost that game. It went into double overtime, of course. So, it was a close game. I think Oregon might just shellac Colorado.
Wow.
Smack them down.
Wow. Okay.
The spread is set at 21 points right now, which is kind of surprising to me. I think it might not be that bad. I don't think
it's going to be that bad.
I think it might be like a 14-point game, but I think we're going to find out that you can't just turn around a team with one season, right? I mean, Oregon is a historic program that is consistently getting these recruits and has built this sort of powerhouse of a team in the Pac-12. I mean, they've dominated that conference for so long. I don't think Colorado will be able to win this game, and I think you're going to see that it takes a long time to build like a solid team. You know what I mean? Like you can't just turn around a team in 1 year. It's more than that.
Wow.
What are your thoughts?
That is interesting.
Yeah.
I agree that it's going to take, I think it's going to take Coach Sanders more than one season to kind of turn this team around and get them into being consistently like a national contender, you know? I don't think it's going to be as lopsided as the spread indicates.
Yeah,
like you said.
That's kind of crazy to me.
21 points. I don't think the Ducks are going to win by 21 points.
Yeah.
I think they're going to win because A, they're at home, which is a massive factor, and B, I think they're probably the better team. I think Colorado has a ton of talent. I'm not completely sure that they have all the chemistry kinks quite figured out yet. I think Oregon has that.
Yeah.
Has a lot of that. I think Oregon is going to prove. I think Oregon is like they're older, they're more experienced, they're more consistent. I think.
I mean, they have Bo Nix. I mean, he's been in college football for a millennium,
forever. Literally ever.
Millennium.
Yeah, multiple millennium.
Yeah.
But I think Oregon is the better team. They're more experienced. They're older. They're more consistent. They have. I think the chemistry is better between their players than it is for Colorado's players. Not saying that the chemistry between Colorado's players is bad. In fact, I think it's quite good. But Oregon is just one step ahead in most categories in this game, and I think they're going to prove as such.
Yeah, no, I would agree fully.
So let's keep going down the list. So I'll talk about. So I know you just like before the show for this next game, UCLA and Utah at 3:30. So before the show, before we started recording,
we don't need to say that. No.
You said. I don't really want to cover this game. And I was like, why? And you were like, well, I don't really like UCLA. And I'm like, why don't you like UCLA? I think they kind of got a good thing going over there. I wrote about them and freshman quarterback Dante Moore, which I'll talk about him in a second. But I said to you, Quinn, I was like, why don't you like what UCLA has over there? And you were just like, I just think they're kind of stupid.
You can't say that. No. I love UCLA.
That's what you said.
Certified UCLA. Dorian Thompson.
Let it be known that that's what he said before we started recording today.
Yeah, do that one. Oh, wait, no. There we go.
Yeah, that was crazy camera work.
Dorian Thompson Robinson.
What?
From last year? Was that his name?
Yes, I remember.
I liked him a lot. He was cool.
Yeah.
And he played for UCLA, remember that?
Yes, I remember that. But now you just said that you don't like
But I do like Utah.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Utah bias over here.
Well, okay, because here's my thing with Utah is every single year people are like, Oregon, yeah, they're gonna win the Pac-12, and then Utah just like goes and beats them. Like last year they beat them. No, they beat USC. Wasn't it?
Last year was USC. I think. It was USC.
Like, USC's so good.
Gonna win the Pac-12.
Utah's just like, hey, we'll beat them twice, and it's like, thank you, Utah, appreciate that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I like Utah. I think they're always kind of like fun to watch. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this game?
I think the dynamic for me, the biggest storyline is, will Cam Rising be back?
Yeah.
And if he's not back, I think UCLA wins this game.
Okay.
I think UCLA wins this game. If he plays, I think Utah wins, but UCLA is going to keep it close throughout because I think that while I think they're kind of young, they are starting a freshman quarterback after all. Dante Moore has done nothing but produce in his first 3 games as starter. And I feel like even though he is facing a much tougher Utah defense, I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic. I feel like there is no reason why he shouldn't be able to like put up good numbers again.
Yeah.
But if of course for Utah, I think they're the better team. Like it's kind of like the Colorado Oregon thing. I think Utah is much older. They're much more experienced. They're much more consistent. And if Cam Rising comes back, he is one of the premier quarterbacks in the country.
Oof. Love me some Cam Rising.
Yes.
Consistent play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong with that. You can never, ever go wrong with that. And if assuming Rising plays, then I think the Utes take this game. I think UCLA will keep it closer than a lot of people think. But keep in mind, Utah is at home, and that crowd has grown into it's been that way for the past few years, definitely. But it's now one of the toughest places to play in the country. So I think assuming Cam Rising comes back and plays well, I think the Utes take this game.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't be surprised.
So. Ooh, this is a good one. This is the next one we have up. Ole Miss and Alabama.
Yes, sir.
Oh, man. And Alabama has been in the headlines recently. Not in a good way.
What are they doing there? Like, what is happening?
What's going on,
in
man?
Tuscaloosa?
I feel like we're seeing the end. I think the end has kind of already started.
Really?
For them. I think we're seeing the end of the dynasty.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's being replaced by Georgia. I think they've been replaced by Georgia. And with this whole quarterback situation going on with Jalen Milroe and
I mean, it just seems like it was crumbling.
It's crumbling. It's crumbling. That's a perfect way to describe it.
The story of Alabama, right? So you go your first game, you blow out Middle Tennessee State. People have high hopes. You go and you take Texas, you bring Texas, you welcome it into Tuscaloosa, and you lose a close game. It wasn't terrible.
Yeah.
But you're like, hey,
your quarterback played. He was up and down. It was a very roller coaster
up and down.
game.
He did throw 2 picks. You're like, okay, so we're gonna bench him, and we're gonna bring in a new guy, and actually we're gonna bring in 2 new guys, right? So they bring in Tyler Buckner to start the next game against USF. They put up 3 points in the first half of the game, right? It's a 3-3 game. Some guy spent $10,000 on Alabama. He bet $10,000 and he was going to win back $180.
Bro,
that became a risky bet halfway through that game. It was a risky bet that Alabama was going to win that game because it was so close. USF of all teams, right?
Yeah.
You bring in at halftime.
USF is not a particularly good football team.
No, not at all. At halftime, you bring in Ty Simpson. He doesn't perform well at all. And so then after the game, you have this meeting with the team. Apparently, they had a team meeting where everyone got together.
A
players only meeting.
We only see that stuff in like the NBA, right? And maybe a little bit in the NFL.
And they come out of that with the conclusion that they're going back to Jalen Milroe, the guy who they benched for 2 other quarterbacks in their last game against South Florida, which is just an absolute mess. Which just shows us that whole time against South Florida, none of the guys had confidence in those other 2 quarterbacks because they all liked Milroe.
I think the confidence, there's no confidence. There is very little chemistry.
It's a mess.
And how to imagine, and a big thing is, if you're Jalen Milroe, how are you feeling about all of this?
Yeah,
imagine what he's feeling right now.
If I'm him, I'm thinking, okay, my players like me because they wanted me in. My coaches hate me. So, what do you do in that situation? It's so divided.
How do you react to that?
Yeah, it's tough.
I don't know, man. I think I know it's in Tuscaloosa. I think Ole Miss wins this game just because of everything that's been going on with the Crimson Tide these past few weeks.
I think if Alabama does manage to win the game, and I think I do think Alabama will win the game. I'll say that.
Okay.
I don't think I'm going to be surprised if Ole Miss comes out and wins, but I think Alabama will win the game. And they really need to because they need time because their schedule does not really ease up. They have Tennessee and LSU coming up, and Tennessee doesn't look as good as they once were. LSU, we don't really know how good they look.
LSU is kind of a big question mark.
But they're going to be facing tough teams, and they need to build that chemistry that you talked about them not having. They need to build it, and they need to build it quick. Yeah. And if they go out against Ole Miss and they lose, then they're out of the playoffs, right? Two losses, Power 5 team, you're out of the playoffs.
You don't make the college football playoff with 2 losses. Yeah. You just don't. It just doesn't happen like that.
So big time need for a win here if you're a Crimson Tide fan.
This could very well make or break your season. And I know they have playoff hopes. Who doesn't have playoff hopes? But a program like Alabama always has playoff hopes. And if you lose this game, your playoff hopes are done. Yeah, they are done.
Yeah.
But that's easily. I think that might be the game with the biggest stakes.
Yeah,
overall
I might agree.
Of the weekend, perhaps.
Because some of these other big games where there's teams that are both undefeated, they can
recover from losses. Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's hard to. Yeah. But with one loss, I mean, most of the teams that make it to the college football playoffs have one loss. Yeah. It's hard to go undefeated.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But keeping it going, of course, there are a handful of a little clump of AP top 25 teams that face just kind of some gimme opponents like Duke, UConn. UConn's 0-3. That should
Georgia taking on a tough team in UAB.
Oh yeah, man.
Absolute.
That should be a pretty.
I don't know how they'll get out of that one.
Yeah. That should be an easy win for Duke. Miami facing Temple. We talked about Temple for like a second.
We did talk about Temple for like a second.
Yeah. Miami should be coming out with that. Tennessee taking on UTSA, University of Texas San Antonio.
That's right.
Yeah, go. I literally can't remember their mascot.
It's like, is it like a bird?
Go Roadrunners.
Okay, that's fun.
How about the Roadrunners?
Love that.
Love the Roadrunners.
Okay, well, I think the next big game on the schedule, that's at least in my eyes, is going to be in the Big Ten, prime time on CBS. The best Big Ten game of the year so far. Iowa versus Penn State.
Whoa.
Yeah, that'll be fun. I'm excited.
Yeah, it should be a good game. The whole thing is like, okay, Iowa's offense, are they going to score more than 17 points every game?
They need to. Their coach.
It's literally, isn't it like literally
in
his contract?
So the offensive coordinator, it's what's his name's son. It's the head coach's son.
Is Kirk Ferentz is the coach? It's Charlie Ferentz.
Charlie Ferentz
is the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, so Charlie Ferentz, the offensive coordinator for Iowa, in his contract, because Iowa has been struggling in offense, that's always been the thing, which is actually so amazing to me that a team can be consistently such a good defense yet just struggle on offense. But
yeah, just so hard.
In his contract, it says if the team does not score, I think it's 25, it might be 20. They have to score like 20 or 25 points a game across the season, or else he gets fired at the end of the year. And right now they're on pace because they scored 24 against Utah. I think it's 20. They scored 20 against Iowa State, and they put up 41 against Western Michigan. So, I mean, if you want to give your players some inspiration, because I think he's kind of the players all like Charlie Ferentz.
Yeah, I'm sure they all like him.
They're all like, we got to score or else he's getting kicked. Or he's just getting the boot.
They just kicked down the side of the road.
I'm excited for this game because people have been talking up Penn State. People have been saying, Penn State finally has a better quarterback than both Michigan and Ohio State, and talking a lot about Penn State. I'm excited to see how this quarterback plays. Is it Drew Aller? Aller.
He's thrown for 737 yards, only 4 touchdowns.
Against Illinois, he was 16 of 33 for no touchdowns, so he didn't play great there. But the first 2 games of the season, he looked very good. He looked
very good the first 2 games.
So I'm interested to see against a team like Iowa, who's one of the better defenses in the Big Ten, can they go out there and put up points? I will say that it's going to be in college. What is it called?
Happy Valley,
sorry. It's going to be in Happy Valley, so talk about home field advantage. I mean, we've said it a few times, playing at home gets you the advantage. There's no greater advantage than playing in Happy Valley for Penn State.
Yeah, no
I don't
way.
know if it's going to be a whiteout, but oh my goodness.
I think Penn State takes this game. I think that they take it, I don't know about easily. The spread is, 14.5?
Yeah.
And I think Iowa's defense will keep them in it for maybe like 3 quarters.
Okay.
But
I think Penn State just eventually breaks through.
Yeah, I think they pull away. I think they pull away in the 4th quarter.
Okay.
I think they pull away in the 4th. I think they're going to win. I think they win 27-17. 17.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's. I think
generous
it's
for Iowa.
Yeah, honestly, that is kind of generous. I think it's a one-score game heading into the fourth, but then Drew Aller throws a late touchdown to secure the win. So I think Penn State takes. Do we agree? Do we both agree that Penn State takes it?
Takes the win.
And they're at home, and it's just like it cannot be overstated how difficult it is to win in that environment. It just can't. It's incredibly difficult.
It's crazy.
So that's going to be interesting. So the two games that I'm looking forward to watching the most, we will save. I want to go with Texas and Baylor first.
Yeah.
Let's save that other game for last because I'm going to let you just go off on that one. I'm going to look at Texas and Baylor first because this is a very, very, very interesting game. Very interesting for me because, on paper you might look at it and you're going to be like, oh, guys, Texas is going to win easily, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not so sure. I'm really not so sure. Texas is favored by 14.5. That's where the spread is. But if I'm the Longhorns, man, I think this has could have the makings of a trap game. Keep this in mind. Baylor remember when they played Utah?
I do.
They kept that. They had control over the game for right up until the last 5 minutes or so. They looked like they were going to win. And they probably should have won that game. But they looked like they were going to win practically the entire time. And the loss to Texas State, it was embarrassing, and it probably shouldn't have happened. But keep in mind, this team, Texas, they're playing in Waco, and that Baylor crowd, it can get nuts. Mm-hmm. It can get pretty nuts when it wants to. And I can almost guarantee that it's going to be out in full force for this game because it is vitally important. If Baylor wants to, I think head coach Dave Aranda is coaching for his job.
Yeah.
At this point, if he wants to,
losing to Texas State to start the year is
it'll do that to you. You know, if he wants to, coach another year in Waco, he needs to come out here and make sure that they win this game.
It's a statement game.
Yeah,
honestly.
It's a statement game. If he can get a statement win, that will be huge for his chances in coaching the Bears next year. What are your thoughts? Do you think this is as big a trap game for the Longhorns as I think it is?
I don't think it is. I don't think Baylor's going to win. I think Texas is going to win this game.
I think Texas is going to win too, but it's...
You just think there's a chance
that
Baylor comes in?
I think there's a chance. That's what I'm saying.
I just think that the quarterback play in particular is what's telling me that Texas is going to win because right now Ewers has 8 touchdowns to 0 interceptions and the Baylor quarterback
Sawyer Robertson, I believe,
has 1 touchdown to 3 interceptions.
And keep in mind he is taking over for injured starter Blake. I believe it's Blake Shapen.
Yeah, they lost their starter.
Who, to be perfectly fair, he played well in the Texas State game before he got hurt, but like you said, Ewers is just astronomically better than Robertson.
I think Quinn Ewers is, better than people even credit him. I know he's being talked about being in the Heisman, but I think for me right now, he's one of my Heisman frontrunners. If not the Heisman frontrunner.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I say it multiple times. I'm jealous that Quinn Ewers is with Texas. I wish he was still at Ohio State.
I remember that.
Speaking of that.
Speaking of those Buckeyes, this is easily the biggest game of the season so far for Ohio State.
For both teams.
For both teams, definitely. For both teams. Ohio State's taking on number 9 Notre Dame. Ohio State's 6. Number 6 Ohio State. Number 9 Notre Dame. In Notre Dame, which is in South Bend, right? I was going to say it, but I wasn't sure. Anyway, Ohio State, Notre Dame in South Bend. That's where College Game Day is going to be. Mm-hmm. And Quinn, as our resident diehard Ohio State fan, and having been that for all of your life, I want to. What are your feelings going into this game? What are your feelings?
If you're Ohio State,
which you are Ohio State.
You started the year ranked number 3rd in the country. After winning 3 games, you have dropped down to number 6 in the country. Granted, the first game you played was not great.
No, it was
against
not.
An Indiana
it was
team.
Not great. That is not good.
That is probably one of the worst, if not the worst, in the Big Ten. You go in and you take on Youngstown State at home, and Youngstown State has that game tied 7-7. Granted, you win the game, but your quarterback doesn't look great at all, and people are still saying, oh, you should put in Devin Brown. Kyle McCord doesn't look good. Kyle McCord doesn't look like this. Then you go and you take on Western Kentucky and you smack them with an offense of Western Kentucky that is one of the best in college football.
Oh, yeah.
Statistically
Western
speaking,
Kentucky's
they have one of the
offenses.
best offensive in college football with quite a lot of experience, and the quarterback, Austin Reed, obviously one of the better playmakers and passers
we
in the country.
We talked about him last week, and we talked about that matchup for the Buckeyes.
Exactly. Now you take on Notre Dame. You're going to South Bend. The first time you've really been in a genuine hostile environment, because I'm not counting Bloomington.
No. Bloomington is, for football, Bloomington is not a hostile environment.
Yes, indeed. The entire country has counted out Ohio State. The press has counted out Ohio State. They've dropped from 3 to 6. If you are Ohio State, you need to prove to the country, you need to prove to the world that you deserve to be up there and you deserve to be in the college football playoffs, and that starts right here against Notre Dame in South Bend, 7:30 p.m. on NBC.
Mm-hmm. And the biggest factor in this game to me, if Ohio State wants to prove themselves to the country and to the world that they are for real and they should be once again considered a legitimate contender for the college football playoff, there's one guy that it starts with, and he needs to prove it to the world, to the country, that he can be a legitimate, consistent option.
Yeah. Kyle McCord.
Yep. Kyle McCord.
If Kyle McCord can do that, and he can lead this team, not just to squeak out a victory against Notre Dame, because I think that could happen with Ohio State's defense. Although I'll get to that in a second. But to actually dominate this game and win by multiple scores and put up genuine points and play well.
Yeah.
Kyle McCord not only puts this team in a better position, but he puts himself in a better position. Because then that's when you start getting looked at by NFL scouts, is when you're performing highly against a team like Notre Dame in a hostile environment. Mm-hmm. If you do that, Kyle McCord, I wouldn't be surprised, is in Heisman conversations if he goes out there and plays well. Okay. If he plays fantastic in this game, do not be surprised if he's in Heisman conversations, because this is probably the best game of the year so far.
Yeah.
Counting out maybe Florida State, LSU, but I genuinely don't know how good LSU is.
Yeah.
So this is the game. This has been the game. All eyes are on you. You need to perform well. Yeah. Getting onto that side against Ohio State's defense.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to ask you this. How do you think Ohio State is going to handle Notre Dame's offense, in particular running back? No, not quarterback. Oh. Not quarterback. Running back Estime. What's his first name? Audric Estime.
Audric Estime, and of course, quarterback
Sam Hartman.
Hartman.
I don't know if Sam Hartman is the key. I think it's Estime.
I think that Ohio State's game plan is going to revolve around, because I think this Notre Dame offense is like re-energized with the arrival of Hartman.
Yeah,
they were just kind of. I think they were a little, just like. Maybe, I don't know about sluggish, but just kind of like you needed something new, you know? You needed something fresh if you're the Notre Dame offense, and they got that in Hartman.
Yeah.
And he has been everything that they hoped he would be, and I think more. He's had a fantastic start to the season. He's already over 1,000 yards passing and 13 touchdowns. I couldn't read that. But I think they're going to focus the bulk of their defensive game plan on him, because I think he's their best player. I think. However, for Estime, they need to. This is where it gets tricky. They need to have a game plan for him, because he has proven he is dynamic with the ball in his hands. I mean, the stats may not like completely jump off the page, but they certainly have been. He's
got 521 yards.
Yeah, already, games, and he's got 5 touchdowns. Those are still great numbers. Those are fantastic numbers.
Yeah,
and they need to be able to game plan how do we slow down the run? How do we slow down the passing attack? And I think what Notre Dame is going to do is I think they're going to lean on their run game to start because it's like the saying goes, the running game opens up the passing game, right? And then once they start getting into the run, they can maybe delve into a little bit of play action, you know? Like you know this. You watch the Lions. The Lions are so heavy on play action.
Yep.
And teams like the 49ers too, they're really heavy on play action because if they get McCaffrey going, that opens up the rest of the offense. That opens up Brock Purdy to sprinkle a little bit of play action spread around guys like Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Juwan Jennings, etc. But I think it's similar, not the same, but similar for the Fighting Irish. I think that Ohio State, in order for them to assert themselves as the better team on Saturday night, they need to make sure that they can bottle up the run. And if they can't get the run going, then the Irish will be forced to lean on the pass throughout the whole game. And if you're Ohio State's defensive coaching staff, they'll eventually figure out that, okay, we've stopped the run. Now they're leaning on Hartman's arm to get everything done, or most everything done. If they can bottle up the run consistently, which let's consider Ohio State's defense. I'm not completely sold on that prospect, but only time will tell. Time will tell on that front. But if you can bottle up the run consistently throughout the game and force Hartman and force that passing offense to get everything done, because I think most everyone knows that an offense is more comfortable when they have balance between the run and the pass. You don't you don't just do everything like. You don't just do one thing throughout the whole game unless you're the Chiefs. Anyway, but no, I kid. They run a lot. They have a nice balance between Pacheco and Mahomes. But point being, I think the key for Ohio State is, yes, you need to account for Hartman and what he can do because he's a great player. He's talented and he's a difference maker, frankly. But you also, I think, what might be perhaps more important for the Buckeyes defense is you need to figure out how to bottle up the run consistently. You need to put your foot in the ground and not allow Estime and the rest of that Fighting Irish rushing attack to get going.
Yeah, and I agree. I think. Yeah, it helps when you're not having to guess, right? So
no, for
on
sure.
A first and 10,
for sure.
On a first and 10, usually you don't know what the play call is going to be, whether it's going to be a run or a pass. Mm-hmm. If it's a run and you can stop that, second and 10, then it's probably going to be a pass. Third and 10, you know it's a pass, right?
Yeah.
So in those situations as a defense, when you know what the play call is going to be on a long yardage situation, that's the whole game plan, right? Mm-hmm. If you can get into a play where you know you can drop back, you can only rush 4. You only have to rush 4, maybe send pressure, or you can drop back an extra corner.
Yeah.
That is so important for a team. Mm-hmm. And in terms of coverage, it's so beneficial. Mm-hmm. If you're sitting there guessing the whole time and it's third and short, or they get a nice gain on the run, it's second and 2, like that opens up so much for the Notre Dame offense.
That's what I'm saying.
You go play action, you fire one down the field, you can just run to pick up the first down. Mm-hmm. There is so many more options that the offense has when it's those short yardage situations. So if you're Ohio State, get them into third and longs, get them into second and longs, and try to get those big sacks or loss of yardage plays, because if you get those, that's going to be a whole lot easier to defend later on in the drive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So this is easily, it's like you said, man, this is the biggest game of the year so far. This is the biggest game of the year.
Want to do final score predictions?
Yes. Give me yours first.
I'll go first. As I said, I think Ohio State needs to do something to prove themselves. However, I don't think they're going to show it that much. I don't think they're actually going to go out there and dominate. I think it's going to be a little too close for comfort, but I do think Ohio State squeaks out the win. I'm going to say 31-28.
Man,
a close one. I think it's going to be a good game.
That was so close to what I had. My prediction is 31-24 Buckeyes.
Okay.
Because I think this game is tied going into the final quarter at 24. Mm-hmm. And then I think the connection between Kyle McCord and Marvin Harrison Jr. really starts to heat up. I think that it's possible Harrison could have maybe a semi-quiet game up until the last little stretch, and then I think in the fourth he just takes over and Ohio State comes out with the victory.
I'm so excited to watch.
It's going to be very exciting, and you're coming over, right?
I should be.
Yeah, to watch it on the big TV. Yeah, I think we can say with relative certainty that we would rather watch Ohio State at Notre Dame over Akron at Indiana.
Akron,
No disrespect to Indiana, because but listen, we think Indiana's going to come out with a win, relatively easy win. Hopefully, it can be a redux of the Indiana State game.
Yeah.
But all that going down on Saturday, it's going to be a heck of a day.
It'll be a great day.
It's going to be a fantastic day. So, Quinn, we have about, you know what? We actually got through the whole college football thing faster than I thought we would. We have a couple minutes. Can I interest you in a little bit of NFL Pick'em for week 3? Whoa. Whoa.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we can do. We could speed run it. I don't know if we have that much time.
We have a couple minutes. We can speed run.
What time do we?
It's 11:30.
Okay.
It's 29 right now. Do we want to go fast? Or do we want to do? Well, I said we could like save it. We could do reactions.
We could do reactions. I'll do a quick pick 'em. Okay, wait, I'll speed run this.
Yes.
Indiana Colts, Baltimore Ravens. I'm gonna go with the Ravens because they don't have Richardson. I don't think he's back.
No,
yet.
he will not play.
Tennessee Titans, Cleveland Browns. I'm going to go with the Browns. Falcons, Detroit Lions. I'm gonna go with the Lions.
Yes.
New Orleans,
Completely
Green
unbiased,
Bay.
right?
I'm gonna go New Orleans. Houston Texans, Jacksonville, obviously. Denver Broncos, Miami Dolphins. I'm going to go Dolphins. Chargers, Vikings. I'm going to go Chargers.
Oh, okay.
Patriots, Jets. I'll go Jets. Yeah, I think the Jets. It's at home.
All right. Okay.
And I think Garrett Wilson plays a pretty good game and they beat the Patriots. Commanders, Buffalo. I'm going to go Buffalo. Seattle, Carolina. I'm going to go.
I think Seattle. I think Seattle.
Yeah, Carolina's been
Bryce Young is out.
Garbage.
Not great. Not a great start.
Arizona Cardinals. Dallas Cowboys, obviously the Cowboys.
Dallas takes that one.
12.5 point favorite is crazy. Chiefs, Bears also a 12.5 point favorite. I'm going to go Chiefs.
I think they'll have a bounce back game after the game against Jacksonville, which their offense was obviously not performing up to standard.
The last game on Sunday, Pittsburgh, Vegas. I'm going to go Vegas. I think Devontae Adams just plays better.
Yes, I think he will play better.
Yeah, and then looking into Monday, there's another 2 games, another double
header, one of which
we got the Eagles taking on the Buccaneers.
Go
I think
Birds.
the Eagles win that because the Buccaneers have looked okay with Baker Mayfield, but I don't.
I think this is the game they kind of come back down to earth a little bit.
And then the Rams and Bengals. I think maybe the Bengals finally
figure it out.
Finally.
That's going to be an interesting one because the Rams have looked better than most expected.
Yeah,
but that will be interesting to check out. That was our lightning fast.
It's our lightning fast speedrun. I don't know if anyone understood a single thing I said because I was like,
we can go more in depth next time.
Yeah, we'll just put it in slow motion in post.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what first Buccaneers.
Where Baker Mayfield comes back down to earth.
I think that would be really good.
That would be really funny. But anyway, that's gonna do it for this week.
We love y'all.
We love you guys, and we'll be back to go more in depth because we went way too fast
on the NFL.
Yeah. And what was it you showed me? This the time?
I was just trying to show the time.
What? All right, whatever.
I was worried, but it's okay. We're fine.
I mean, it's
no one has the room.
They're not going to gripe at us if we leave 5.
Yeah,
this is behind the scenes. They're not going to gripe at us if we leave like maybe 5 minutes after, are they? No way. No way. But anyway, we'll be back. We'll be back soon with episode 4, and we will go more in depth on our like reactions
to the week. Hopefully, it's as good as it's supposed to be.
Oh yeah, for sure.
College football,
for both college football and for NFL because we went way too fast on this.
Yeah,
and we just want to get it in by the 11:30 mark, which we didn't because it's 11:32. Anyway, anywho. But that'll be it for the show for this week. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will be back soon with episode 4.
Adios.